In the name I am that I am, Sanat Kumara, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty Choans of the rays and the lords of Karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I do in the action of the sacred fire in this hour, descend almighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sanat Kumara and the seven holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory. Come forth in this hour of the victory of the God slain. I demand the full power, beloved mighty, exceed me with us this night. Beloved Jesus, send to me, Lord, my Savior, Gautama and Sanat Kumara. Come, Lord, now in the victory of the God slain. Send the light of 10,000 suns. Beloved mighty, stand, mighty, stand, mighty, stand. Around this fortune now. I call upon the great single sunlight. I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved Estelle, beloved Estelle, beloved Estelle. I call upon the electronic solar rings of the great single sun, the seraphim of God. I call for the electronic fire rings. I call.
Good morning and welcome to another adventure around the cosmos. This is Robert Phoenix, and you are listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. This is the show where I take you on a tour of the stars. Big shout out to Tiger 5, Love Life Today, and the anonymous guests who are so kind enough to show up into the chat room today. And I'm sure there'll be more people as the show progresses. Last week we had a full chat room. Excuse me, and I hope that we have even more this week. The whole idea here is to build this up to the point where I become an international media celebrity and make millions of dollars, and then give a lot of that money back to people who could really use it. So do your part, contribute, listen to the show, and let's take on the Rush Limbaughs, the Alex Joneses, and whoever else, the Glenn Becks of the world. It is our time. It is our time. And you can do your part by listening to the show and contributing your energy, your awareness. And I don't know. I don't ask you for your time. Your time, perhaps. Not your money, per se. But you can always get a reading from me. And my website is robertphoenix.com. I've been slammed with readings, by the way. I've been really busy, which is one of the reasons why I have not been writing as much on the site. I've just been doing lots of readings for people, which is good because it helps me stay afloat. And it's also challenging because it takes me away from the writing piece, but, you know, I have to do it when I can. Let's put it that way. So today is the 5th of September. We are deeply into Virgo. The sun is at 13 degrees. We've now moved into the second decanate of Virgo. And this is where the moon today is in Taurus, and it is forming a nice trine to the sun. Moon in Taurus represents the solid traditional values, taking care of your body, taking care of what's on your plate, paying your bills, doing your laundry like I'm doing today right now, even though I'm on the air, multitasking, as it were. This is a good time to do all that. If you wanted to get a haircut, the Taurus moon is always a good time to get a haircut, no matter whether it's waxing or waning. It's better when it's on the wax than the wane, and we are definitely on the wane now, but nonetheless, it's a good time to get a haircut. Why? Because the hair will regrow in a healthy fashion. So get your hair cut on a Taurus moon. It's not a bad thing to do. It's also a good time for you to get other things done. And it could be anything from pedicures, manicures, massages are great today, especially with the sun in Virgo and the moon in Taurus. This massage can be equally sensual and healing. So it feels good and it does good things for you. So treat yourself to a massage today under this wonderful confluence of the Taurus moon and the Virgo sun. Mercury is also in Virgo, so it gives us the ability to communicate and chat and exchange ideas in a rapid fashion. It conjuncts the sun and trines the moon. So again, we have a very nice network of Earth taking place in the world and in our lives today. Doing things that are practical, doing things that that matter and make sense are again pushed forward. And this is a time where I think we all have to be able to do that and step back at times from our own predispositions to get a clearer view of the world around us. The challenge with the Mercury in Virgo is separating the wheat from the chaff, and sometimes it can get so analytical and so didactic that you miss the big picture. Other than that, it's a great aspect. Let's throw a little Capricorn into the mix, shall we? Capricorn's in there at 6 degrees, and now we have a trine going on. We actually have a nice grand trine, and that's with the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, and Capricorn, all in Earth. You can get a lot done today. And when Pluto comes into the mix, we can actually use the energy of Pluto to transform our thoughts, transform our beliefs, transform areas in our lives where we fall short. Because Mercury in Virgo can be very critical. Pluto coming into the mix allows us to be able to use those critical faculties and dissolve the imperfections inside of ourselves like a laser beam. A lot of it has to do with forgiveness, and a lot of it has to do with being able to see where you need to change and make those changes. And it can happen. These things are applicable. This is astrology in action right now. All these aspects today, they are all cohering to create a dynamic template for you as an individual to look at yourself, to take care of yourself, to find out what you need to do on a very fundamental level, and to make steps accordingly without judgment and without criticism or censure onto yourself. Also, it's a time where you can give and receive criticism from a place of engaged and agreed upon transformation. That means that people can get into a dialogue and they can share each other's truths on a day like today and help one another out, because we're not islands. We're not islands in the ocean of the cosmos. And I mean, in some ways we are. It's that paradoxical dynamic, right? You're the center of the universe, but you're not. And so today, with all of this Earth, you can actually have very healthy dialogues with other people where you can help one another along. Hey, did you know the blind spot here? Did you know the blind spot here? Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. There's some water action going on. True node is moving in Scorpio. That's a big deal, ladies and gentlemen. It was in Sagittarius, and now the true node, this is all a precursor, right? This is, what do we have going on? We've got true node at 29 degrees Scorpio, Mars at 8 degrees Scorpio. In October, Saturn shows up. What signs are coming into? Scorpio. So the scorpionic energy is going to mount, and that is a very powerful energy. The kids that have Pluto and Scorpio, the early degrees of Pluto and Scorpio, Saturn's going to hit them. And it's going to be a very interesting experience for these Pluto and Scorpio kids. Two things will happen. One, they'll either get it and they will quickly distill and catalyze their own personal power. That's number one. And a generational power as well. Or number two, they will have a rude awakening that the party train is over. And that's something that they'll have to deal with shortly, especially as some of them then begin to go into their own Saturn return starting this year as well. So this is going to be an interesting time for that generation. And one of the things that I've been talking about for a while with knowing that this is on the horizon is the rise of a sexually transmittable disease and primarily impacting their generation. Why is that? Because the South Node is in Taurus, and that's the body. That is the body. It has everything to do with the body. And this is where we get into this whole polarity of the true node, the South Node, and what they mean in our lives and collectively. So the South Node would be the vulnerable area of the corpus collective, or the collective body. So the body itself becomes something that people need to deal with very, very consciously, because it is in its descendancy with the South Node. So this is a very, very powerful dynamic here. With the true node being in Scorpio, the Pluto and Scorpio generation will feel a surge of power, and that surge of power will be translated into more sexuality, because you're going to have the last wave of Pluto Scorpio kids, moving into college and into the workaday world. Pluto and Sagittarius kids are looming. I believe that they are 16 years old right now, 16, 17 years old, and that's the first wave. So we're looking at the last wave of Pluto and Scorpio, and they're the ones that are, I'm sure that they've been sexually active already. That generation was sexually active when they were 11, 12, 13. But this will be the last wave that fully engages in this sexuality apart from their parents and all that stuff. So there is a major push to experience this energy with this generation. And the Achilles heel, which would be in some ways the South Node, is the body. So we're going to be looking at not just this generation, but other generations, in my estimation, the rise of the sexually transmittable disease. Now, that could be anything from AIDS Part 2 or Part 3, depending upon what your definition of AIDS is, to other diseases or viruses that can be sexually transmittable. For instance, West Nile virus. Is West Nile virus sexually transmittable? We don't really know. Perhaps it is. I'm guessing that it is. One of the things that a lot of people don't know or understand or are aware of is that we are suffering a crisis right now from Lyme disease. And there's some good movies out there about Lyme disease. And Lyme disease is a silent killer. There's one called What's Under Our Skin, I believe. And the genesis of Lyme disease, since we're in Virgo and we're breaking this stuff down, we're talking about health, why don't I get into that a little bit? So Lyme disease started in a place called Plum Island, which is just off the coast of Connecticut, and right across the water there from a place called Lyme, Connecticut, hence the name Lyme disease. This is where the tick-borne virus known as Lyme disease shows up in the first place. It's Lyme, Connecticut, right across from Plum Island. If you want to know more about Plum Island, check it out. Don't check it out before you go to bed at night. It's a nightmare. It is the island of Dr. Moreau. It is where where the government has been working on, in conjunction with the CDC, all kinds of crazy viruses and bacteria, and they use a lot of animals there. And so what people think happened is that Lyme was created at Plum Island, and it was taken from Plum Island to Lyme, Connecticut via birds. And then, of course, the birds were then at some point connected to ticks. And then the ticks spread Lyme disease in Lyme, Connecticut, and then in the East Coast. Well, I got news for you, boys and girls. If you really drill down and you learn more about Lyme disease, you'll find that it's not just a tick-borne disease. It is airborne. It is transmittable from one person to another, and most people in the United States have it, and they don't even know it. And this is really this is a major. It's controversial, but it's also it's a major cover-up as far as I'm concerned. And if people were to go into a doctor and do Lyme panels, they'd be shocked over the results that they would find with Lyme, because it shows up as different things. It might show up as fibromyalgia. It might show up as IBS. It might show up as Crohn's disease. These would all be manifestations of Lyme as the general condition, with these individual symptoms being the ones that would be being treated. Lyme is very, very hard to treat. You have to be on a very powerful regimen of antibiotics, and it's above and beyond the schedule of antibiotics that you're allowed by the medical industry. I think you're only allowed 20 to 30 days worth of antibiotics. Apparently, Lyme takes at least 3 months worth of intensive antibiotics, and you also have to keep the flora up in your gut, so you've got to continue to reinforce your flora in the gut, because the antibiotics will wipe that out. If you don't have any flora in your gut, you're screwed. So Lyme is a very, very, very big deal, and it can be transmitted from one person to another. Also, if you listen to the show, you know that I talk about chemtrails quite a bit, and they have actually found Lyme in chemtrails. So wrap your head around that, boys and girls. They found a lot of other things in chemtrails as well. So here we are. It's the Sun in Virgo, Moon in Taurus, Mercury in Virgo, and we're talking about health today. We're talking about health in a, I guess, a conspiratorial or darker sense, but we can also talk about health from a health sense. What can you do to stay healthy? You know, in terms of your sign, you know, what kind of options and strategies can you employ in order to maximize your health based on astrology? And we can look at that today. Maybe I'll do that with some of the readings today as well. Jupiter is still moving forward in Gemini, and the chatter and the banter is going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between the Democrats and the Republicans. It's no coincidence, by the way, that Clint Eastwood was the star of the Republican National Convention. Was Clint Eastwood's sign? He's a Gemini. He shined during that time, and his sign supported his shine, so to speak. And it was also very interesting that he was having a dialogue with an empty chair. Of course, he is a Gemini, and it was funny because I thought to myself, well, if he were Libra, there'd be somebody in that chair, right? So it's a perfect astrological symbol. Clint Eastwood having a dialogue with an absentee Barack Obama. Caught a lot of flack for his speech. I didn't think it was that controversial. There were some things that he said in his speech that I really agree with about who the country belongs to. Why does anybody have a problem with that? Why does anybody have a problem with that this country belongs to us? I mean, theoretically, right? We've been given this notion, we've been given this piece of paper, says, yes, the country belongs to us. Now, you can drill down, you can get into the straw man, you can get into the incorporation of every single individual, that we are nothing but chattel for the city of London and all that stuff. So maybe the country doesn't really belong to us, which is why all these laws can be passed, and maritime law and all that stuff, right? But for a moment in time, it does. For a moment in time, conceptually, in Clint Eastwood's world, in the purely distilled, true sense of a republic, it does. And how could anybody fault him for that? It cannot be faulted. He cannot be faulted. What he can be faulted for is this whole thing with Gitmo. He says, well, we may as well keep it open now because, well, we spent so much money on it. There are people in Gitmo that have been there since Bush brought them there. There are people in Gitmo that are going to die there, and they've already died there. And the Obama administration can wring its hands and say, oh, we couldn't do anything. Congress stopped us, and blah, 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 blah. That's bullshit. The Obama administration had Congress and the Senate. They had it right there. In the first 2 years, he could have shut that thing down. He could have shut it down. But what did he do? No, he decided that he wanted to fight to keep it open. Elena Kagan, who was the lead counsel for the White House, argued to the Supreme Court that Guantanamo needed to stay open, and not only needed to stay open, but the whole concept of rendition needed to be something that was vital, important, and must be kept alive in this country. And Barack Obama did nothing to dispel that notion or to stop it. And this is one of the problems I have with people in the, and look, I'm not a Mitt Romney guy. Come on. I'm not a Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney's a nightmare. He's a nightmare. If you go to Facebook, I put up a YouTube video. Maybe I'll put it on the website. It's a YouTube video where it's 10 minutes long. It's a 10-minute video. It'll change your life, to be honest with you. You want to take 10 minutes of your time, pull away from the feel-good cat videos, and watch this video. It's on my Facebook page, Robert Phoenix. You can find me on Facebook. And it's a video with, side by side, Mitt Romney and Barack Obama talking about the same issues. And they're almost saying the same things word for word. It's scary, especially on things like healthcare and security and, you know, the big issues of the day. They are all, they're right there. They are the same person. The same person. This gets into Jupiter and Gemini, by the way. The same person. I don't understand how people can't see this. You know, I have these friends on Facebook. I just want to shake them up. It's like Michelle Obama gives a speech and they're like, "Yes, you go. I love her." Are you kidding me? Anyway, I have friends who I think are turned on, conscious, and aware, and one in particular who knows the score politically. She knows the ins and outs. She knows everything. She was an editor of a magazine called Perceptions, which got into this stuff back in the 90s. That magazine was very influential in my own political development. And she was the editor of that magazine. She says, "Well, I think we need to elect Barack Obama. We need to vote for Obama. He needs, he may not be the best choice, but, he's only had 4 years." Only had 4 years. Well, if he hadn't taken so many goddamn vacations, maybe he could have got something done. But you see, the idea here is to not get anything done. It's not, people don't have a clear picture. Their job is to not get anything done. Their job is, and if something's going to get done, it's going to get done in a very different kind of way. It's like people always used to say, Bush is doing a really shitty job. I say, you've got to be kidding me. He's doing a great job. He's just not doing a great job for you. I mean, let's get that clear. He is doing a fantastic job for everybody that he needed to do a fantastic job for. He did it. And he took a massive wrecking ball to this country. Rights, freedoms, money, you name it. George Bush was throwing kerosene on the fire. That's what he was doing. And loving every single minute of it. Whichever George Bush it was, by the way. Loving every single minute of it. And Obama's doing the same thing. He's forwarding the agenda for the people that put him there, groomed him. And people don't understand that. Even these people that theoretically understand it, they default. There is this default, which I don't understand. It's this default of, well, okay, I'm going to trust, and I'm going to put my faith in this man, in this process, 4 more years, because, oh my God, who's the alternative? And I've seen this before too. Who's the alternative? It's this guy. It's the scary white guy who will take everything from you. Everything from you. You know what? He might. But there's no guarantee that the other guy isn't going to take everything from you. He'll take everything from you, and he'll promise to give you something in return. So here's the notion, right? Here's the trade-off. Obama will say, okay, you're going to have to work harder and make less. That's just the way it is, boys and girls. It's time to grow up. Work harder, make less, spread the wealth, do the right thing. There are people less fortunate than you. So you just got to give it up, okay? Do it. Do it for Barack. Do it for Barack. Do it for your children. And that'll happen. So then, okay, well, great, I'll do that. What do I get in return? What kind of cool things am I going to get? I'll give up. You want to tax me 50%? Go ahead, tax me. What do I get? Give me something. And I'm not talking about health care, universal health care. You're going to take that out of my taxes anyway. What am I going to get? Can you give me something tangible? How about this, Obamas? Why don't you tax us 50%? And then why don't you take over, why doesn't the state take over the oil industry? I mean, government really wants to get into business anyway, right? I mean, they're sponsoring Solyndra and Light Squared and all these companies. They've got their fingerprints. Hey, Barack Obama killed Osama bin Laden, and guess what? He saved GM. So there's this notion that government can't come in and take over a company and then save the day. I'll tell you what. Why don't you take over the oil industry? Why don't you nationalize petroleum? I'll give you 50% of my income if you nationalize petroleum, and I'm getting gas for $1 a gallon. Sure, do that. Make it so. Give us something tangible. Don't ask us to give up the majority of our income and then give us nothing in return. That is a shell game. Give us something tangible. Here's a question for you. Would you give up 50% of your taxable income if you could pay a dollar a gallon for gas. Think about that. It's an interesting concept. Very interesting concept. So here's where we are. This is the Sturm und Drang, the debate that's going on. And of course, Jupiter and Gemini is, well, it's just, kicking up dust. The thing with Jupiter and Gemini is that it gets into minutia and trivia and all kinds of subplots and side stories and backstories and, subversive narratives and all that. Jupiter and Sagittarius, big picture, get to the truth, get to the most expansive view, and then see it for what it is. Jupiter and Gemini is all about the intrigue. It's all about chatter. It's all about he said, she said. Ooh. So I guess we can invoke Jupiter and Sagittarius. Why not? I've got Jupiter and Sagittarius. Yes, I do, 25 degrees. Jupiter in Sagittarius. So I guess I just did, didn't I? How about some birthdays today? Some very interesting birthdays today. Fascinating birthdays. Let's just go through the list, shall we? Today is the birthday of one Frederick Balsero. If you don't know who Frederick Balsero is, it's okay. You probably know him by another name, Freddie Mercury. Freddie Mercury was born in Zanzibar, and he was the son of a British diplomat. It's interesting how these musicians have fathers who are British diplomats or spies or something along those lines. Joe Strummer from The Clash, his father was a quote-unquote British diplomat. Most diplomats are engaged in spying. It sounds nice being a diplomat, developing relations with the local government and all those things for the government you're in, but most of them are intelligence gathering agents, and everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. Freddie Mercury, born in Zanzibar, and amazing. The guy had a 3-octave range. And when you think of Virgo, when you think of this whole idea of Virgo being chaste and pure, Freddie Mercury was anything but chaste and pure. This guy was a freaking legend. I mean, he had a massive, massive, massive entertainment for the flesh, and not just any flesh, but of course male flesh. And as it turns out, dies of AIDS. So here we are, we're having a conversation about the new forms of sexually transmittable diseases, which I believe are coming during Saturn and Scorpio. And now we're talking about Freddie Mercury. Today is also the birthday of, speaking of synchronicities, Arthur Kessler. Arthur Kessler is a really interesting individual. If you have not discovered Arthur Kessler, I highly recommend you find out who this guy is or was. He wrote 2 books, in my estimation, that are some of the most important books of the 20th century. One is The Roots of Coincidence, where he gets into this whole notion of synchronicity. On Synchronicity by Jung and The Roots of Coincidence by Kessler are the books for synchronicity. And the other book that he wrote, fascinating book called The 12th Tribe. And The 12th Tribe is all about his relationship with his religion. Arthur Kessler was born Jewish and in Hungary. He tasted almost every single political persuasion that was related to his faith. So he was a communist. He was an avowed Zionist. And then he broke with both of them. And he realized that political systems and political ideologies were not going to help him get to the truth. So in order for him to understand his predilection and his own predisposition and his own roots, he decided to explore the roots of Judaism. And he found, based on his research, this is a very important book, that the Ashkenazim, which is the group that he was born into, according to Kessler, and not just Kessler, but also Shlomo Sand, who is a scholar at the University of Tel Aviv, and it's either Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, I forget. But both of them have really drilled down to this point that most of the Ashkenazim are descendants of a tribe called the Khazars, who lived between China and Russia, right? So they were in the like the Caucasus Mountains, and what they did is they controlled the trade route from Europe to China. So if you wanted to get to China, you had to go through these guys. You had to pay them tribute. You had to give them something in order to go to China and get your spices and all that stuff. And something, you'd probably have to give them something going back too. So you'd have to order, extra. And they'd say, hey, look, we're a little short on saffron. Can you bring some saffron back? Sure, no problem. Give them the saffron, you get to go through. But if not, they'd probably cut you up and eat you for dinner. So these guys, they were a tribe, and they were pagans. They were phallic. They were phallus worshippers, and they were realizing with all this trade between East and West that in order to be legitimate and bona fide, that they would have to take on a religion. And their leader was King Bulan, B-U-L-A-N. You can look this up. And he decided that they needed to figure out if they were going to be Muslim, Christian, or Jewish. And at that time, the Muslims and the Christians were fighting. He didn't want to pick a side. So, he didn't want to become involved in the conflagration between the Muslims and the Christians. So he chose Judaism for the belief system for their tribe. And there's also a number of other tenes in Judaism that made it much more attractive for them. So there's this confluence between Kabbalistic magic and the Talmud and all the other ancient Judaic texts and their own belief system. It was an interesting confluence, and these guys became extremely smart. They were already very smart in their own way, extremely smart and very, very politically aware. And these are the guys that moved out of the Caucasus Mountains and then down into Eastern Europe. Now, this is generally considered a controversial topic. Okay, a controversial topic. But when somebody like Arthur Kessler lays it out, when somebody like Shlomo Sand lays it out, and they themselves, are Ashkenazim, and they say, hey, look, this is not really the story we've been told. Here's the real story. You must pay attention. And whether you believe it or not, whether you say they're self-hating Jews or whatever that thing is, you got to pay attention. What's really interesting is on this page about Arthur Kessler here. He has a very fascinating chart, by the way, extremely fascinating. Grand Cross, man, just powerful, powerful stuff, Mr. Kessler. It goes into great detail about his life, his relationships, his books. And what's fascinating here is that they leave out the 12th tribe. So, unfortunately, Mr. Kessler created suicide, or we're led to believe. And but there's a lot of interesting pieces here. He was one of the first people to start a parapsychological program, and that was at the University of Edinburgh. And he was the chair there and did a lot of his psychic research in Edinburgh. He wrote a book called The Lotus and the Robot, which is when he went to the East and decided that he wanted to try to understand the spiritual precepts of Zen and Hinduism. And he came away actually pretty cynical about both of them. The Lotus and the Robot, right? So kind of an important book too. Darkness at Noon, which turned into a play. So he's a really interesting character. The autobiography of his life is called Scum of the Earth. I'm sure that there are some people that might agree with him, especially based on his book called The 12th Tribe. So another interesting person today is one Jack Rosenberg. Does that name not sound familiar to you? Perhaps his other name might sound even more familiar. That is Werner Erhard, the father and founder of EST, one of the most important spiritual and human potential movements and organizations in the 20th century. There are people that have linked him to Scientology, and I'm sure that there could be a case made for that. So Jack's life, a.k.a. Werner, is that I think he was a car salesman. And I'll just read this to you. Yeah, here it goes. It says, American entrepreneurial guru, a multi-million-dollar merchandiser of enlightenment, the founder of Earhart Seminar Training, with a debut on 10/4/1971. His high-energy brand of instant salvation flourished in the mid-'70s, making him an equally instant millionaire. His organization spawned a network centered on the principles of transformation. A one-time used car salesman, he studied the consciousness disciplines of East and West to integrate his own brand of group therapy workshops. It is reported that Est attracted 500,000 people, including such public figures as actress Valerie Harper and singer John Denver. Much of the jargon of Est became part of the culture of the me generation, such as getting it and creating your own space. In 1960, he left his first wife and 4 children in Philadelphia and changed his name so that they could not find him. He claims that where their marriage failed, their relationship is now a success with forgiveness and profound mutual support. He went into Mexico, by the way, during that time when he changed his name. He fit into the California subcultures of human potential movements, pop psychology, Eastern metaphysics. The story goes that he got it one day in an instant while stuck on a crowded freeway. The awareness that he was not his emotions and beliefs and intellect, but he was the creator and source of his experience. In 1960, he married Ellen Virginia Earhart, who separated from him in September 1982. After 22 years of marriage and 1 son, Ellen Earhart later said in an interview that Werner's ego and public image were the most important things in the world to him, and that children, money, or whatever are so far down, it doesn't matter. In 1982, enrollment in S began dropping, and the IRS claimed that Earhart owed $2 million in back taxes. The following year, his ex-wife, Ellen, sued for half of everything. When Earhart retired S in 1984, he came up with another program called The Forum, which was pitched to people who wanted to make it happen. It jumped the price from $475 for an S session to $595 for learning to get a decisive edge in your ability to achieve. Since it began in 1985, 100,000 people have gone through the Forum program. A very handsome man with a raspy voice, thickened by cigars. He's an executive in a sleek European jacket and power that extends well past his original Est weekends. WENA, Werner Earhart & Associates, projects gross revenues of $39 million in 1988. So this goes on and on and on and on. I know a lot of people that were at Est. Says here, in January 1991, a memo from his Bay Area company recommended bankruptcy, and his kids, in interviews, were telling the press horror stories of abuse. His daughter, Celeste, told the San Jose newspaper, "You never know when he's going to go off and throw things or smack mom. Maybe he didn't really get it." I don't know. I am not a group guy like that. I know people that have been very into Werner, a good friend of mine, super into Werner, applies his principles on a daily basis. He's super successful, this guy. He's got tons of toys, lots of money. He's taken away a lot of the blinders in his life. He's taken off the governor, so to speak. And good for him. I still don't think he gets it. But that's just my opinion. And I don't think he gets me. He used to like me, this guy. But it was a little bit much for him. So we have Werner Earhart and we have Arthur Kessler, 2 brilliant minds. Absolutely brilliant minds. Let me throw a third brilliant mind in there, somebody that you may not really think of as a brilliant mind. How about Raquel Welch? How about that? Raquel Welch's birthday is today. Raquel Welch is one sharp cookie, let me tell you. She gets it. She is very, very sharp, very talented. She's a yogini, and she's absolutely, utterly clear. Now, some people say that she might have been a MK Ultra pinup doll, perhaps. I'm willing to bet that she's moved beyond that, if that is the case. Today is also the birthday of Ricky Fataar, interesting character. Ricky Fataar actually was a member of the Beach Boys for a brief period of time, and he was the drummer on the Holland sessions, and he also played in a a parody group of the Beatles called the Ruddles. And Ricky Fataar and his buddy Blondie Chaplin joined the Beach Boys for one album. And he's made a great living off of being a drummer. Today is also the birthday of Bob Newhart. Very funny guy. Dry, droll, Virgoan wit. I love Bob Newhart. Very, very funny character. And still very glad that he's still part of this world and still on this planet. And I hope he's doing extremely well and melting into his final years here. I mean, how could we not be grateful over all the laughs that Bob Newhart has brought us? And comedy that never, ever existed in at the expense or flourished at the expense of another person. It was Bob Newhart's brand of comedy was never mean. It was never mean-spirited. It was always poking fun at our own foibles. So God bless you, Bob. Today is also the birthday of Paul Volcker. Paul Volcker was the head of the Fed. He was the guy that set everything up in a very big way in the 70s. There was a major shift in the Fed in the 70s, but the Fed did not have as much power as it did until Volcker came in. Now, they said that there was a major inflation problem in the 70s, and Paul Volcker decided he was going to come in and charge you 35% interest to get a loan for your house. And that's what he did. That was his great contribution to American economics. And of course, passing the baton off to one Alan Greenspan. Volcker's still around, and he's still quite vocal about the Fed and the economy. Now, I mean, he's on the other side. Okay, he's worth listening to, but only if you want to figure out, what the other side potentially is up to. John Cage, his birthday. A lot of great birthdays today. John Cage's birthday today. John Cage, of course, the wonderful avant-garde composer who has a composition that is nothing but silence. What more would you expect from a Virgo than something like that? And then last, but certainly not least, it is Jesse James's birthday. And Jesse James, we're talking old school Jesse James, the bandit, the outlaw. It's his birthday. Apparently, he was killed in 1882. I've heard other pieces that his death was faked, and that he actually lived on. Jesse James was a Freemason too, but you didn't know that. It's interesting. I'm looking at his picture here, and I think his great-great-great-grandson or something like that is Jesse James, the guy who was married to Sandra Bullock for a minute. And I'm looking at his picture. He actually looks like him. It's pretty wild. Okay, it is 10:45, and we've taken a little bit of a tour around the stars. I've done a little pop culture download. And, yeah, hey, there's lots of people in the chat room. Thank you for being there. So here we go. Let's should we get into some calls now? There's people waiting. Okay, well, let's not make them wait any longer. Let's do some readings, shall we? You're listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'm your host here, and let's roll it out. Here we go. Hello there.
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Good show.
Thank you.
I wanted to comment really quickly about what you had spoken about in the beginning of the show regarding Lyme disease.
Yeah.
So, I've had Lyme disease now for like 15 years, so it is a serious ailment and one that's not given any attention, basically.
Yep.
Kind of pushed under the rug. But just one comment about what you had stated about antibiotic treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So just to be clear, in case anybody's listening, from what I've read, the antibiotic treatment works if undertaken in the outset of the disease. I mean, it has to be in the beginning when you first get bitten by the tick and you first get Lyme disease. The antibiotics,
yeah,
from what they say, can help.
Yeah.
But once you've had the disease for a good amount of time, the antibiotic treatment does nothing more than hurt your body. Because it kills all the bacteria in your body, and a lot of bacteria is good. So I just wanted to be pretty clear from what I understand about that, because you can wind up hurting yourself rather than helping yourself.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. And my experience with Lyme comes from knowing somebody who has had it and have been going through the treatments. And also from testimonials from other people. Daryl Hall from Hall & Oates have Lyme disease, and he's talked about this publicly, and he talked about the type of treatment that he got. He didn't really talk about it a lot because it's frowned upon by the AMA, obviously, and the AMA doesn't really want to recognize Lyme per se. Can I ask you some questions about your condition? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, so you've had it for 15 years. What kind of symptoms, if any, do you still experience now, and what do you do to deal with it?
Okay, so basically, I didn't know I got bitten by the tick, if that's how I got it a long time ago, but because of the symptoms that I had, which were basically neurological symptoms, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. But then later on, after a lot of aching from my parents at the time, the doctor did a test for Lyme, and I was off the charts. So the doctor said, okay, you have Lyme disease. We're going to treat you with antibiotics. I was paralyzed at the time, really scary stuff, and it all went away from the antibiotics. So it looked like it was Lyme, and it was treated, and we beat it with the antibiotics. But then about 15 years later, I started to get more neurological symptoms, and this time they said that it wasn't Lyme, it was MS again. But it's a really thin line between Lyme and MS, because Lyme can basically mimic any disease, and like you said, it's not officially recognized as a disease. So people that do have Lyme really can't get the adequate treatment for it. So right now I think what I have is MS, Lyme-induced MS. From my studying, and I've done a lot of reading about it, because it's something that no doctor is going to tell you, well, you have this and you have to get treated, because it's really complicated. Lyme is really, really complicated, and there's not a lot of study into it. So I basically have MS symptoms, but I had Lyme in the past, so I really don't know what happened, but what I'm thinking is that it was Lyme-induced MS, from what I've looked into. And then when you start to look into things, that's what basically woke me up to everything that's going on, was my sickness, because I said, something's wrong here, basically. And then you start going into everything, and you get into the rest of the stuff, like you were talking about politics and whatnot, and but as far as Lyme goes, that's my experience with it. I don't have the classic Lyme symptoms, which are like fatigue, joint pain. I don't have those symptoms. The only thing I have is that at one time, the Lyme levels in my body were very high. That's basically how I know I did have Lyme. So, but I did another round of antibiotics recently, before I understood that they weren't going to do anything, and they didn't do anything. I mean, from books I've read about Lyme, if you don't catch it right at the beginning, then it can hide itself inside your body, so that antibiotics won't do anything at that point to it.
Well, thank God for your parents at that time, who were not resting on the laurels of Western medicine. They weren't placing their entire, full faith and credit in the high priest of allopathy. So good for them. And you got 15 years of good time. And what are you doing now to deal with these symptoms?
I'll tell you the truth. Right now, I mean, I have some slight symptoms, but I basically lead a normal life. I don't believe in the conventional medicines that they offer you, you wind up getting sicker rather than better. So I really go after everything with diet, supplementation, and just living as much of a stress-free life as I can, and I've been doing pretty well with it. So,
good.
Thank God that's the situation. I want to comment one more comment about what you were talking about with Obama and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that, in my opinion, we just live in such a funny time when you can have a group of people that totally understand that it's all just fake and it's all a facade. But then at the same time, you have people that just won't see that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's a time that we live in where there's almost two separations of people in the world right now. And you can't speak to those other people. You can't even talk to them because they just don't want to see it and they don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and it's almost surreal, to be honest with you, to see how these lines are being drawn, and I talked about this one person that I saw on Facebook yesterday, and to your point, this is a person who is, she was an editor of a magazine that was like tearing this stuff down in the 90s. I mean, she's been in this mix for almost 30 years now. Okay, and she just casually defaults to Obama in the next 4 years. I mean, it's like, are you kidding me? I mean, how does this happen? And the only thing that I can think of is that there are two different brain types. This is the only thing that I've come up with, and that there are brain types that are more amenable to real change and real solutions, real perspectives that aren't locked into some form of nostalgia or empirical data that is interpreted on an emotional level, And there's another brain type that defaults to some other kind of script. And I talked about, there's a site called Montauk, Montalk. I think it's montauk.net. And I've talked about this site before, and a lot of this comes through the Cassiopean material. And in Montauk and the Cassiopean material, there's essentially this breakdown of the human system. And humans they're either, called souled beings or organic portals. And, organic portals are people that are, for lack of a better term, they're like receptacles for the matrix, and that they don't have any real volition. They don't have any real thoughts of their own. What happens is they become occupied by an energy that wants to forward its own program. I mean, maybe this, has something to do with it. It's a little didactic for me, and I know people can shift and change. I've seen that before, but I just keep coming down to this piece where it's got to be different brain types. That's my only take home that makes sense, and because. Just let me finish this really quickly, and then I'll talk about your chart, because you obviously want to tell them about your chart too. But in order for somebody to have the ability to step outside themselves and see the bigger picture or the bigger milieu, their brain essentially has to break. It's like a muscle. And when you build a muscle, your muscle will get sore, and you have to get to this point where your brain will literally, in some ways crack. And a lot of people don't want to go that far. A lot of people don't want to, quote unquote, break their brains. But I think in order to get to this place where you are on the outside, and maybe it is confronting a debilitating disease like Lyme, like what you had, which forced you to break your brain in a way to free yourself from the constraints of the common story or the common theme, that you had to do that. And I think a lot of people, quite frankly, aren't willing to do that. They aren't willing to suffer that kind of discomforts in their own mental process in order to kind of crack their mind open. And I think when the cracking of the mind takes place, then I do think brain types do change. I mean, that's just my own lay theory. So I'll let it rest there. Let's talk about you. What's your name, and what do you want me to look at with your chart today?
Okay, can I just add one thing to what you just said?
Sure.
What do you say towards people, which is another dynamic that I've been seeing? You might find people that will go out of their way to speak out about things like 9/11. So you would think they're awake, or Occupy protesters. You would think they're awake. But at the same time, they're only awake to a certain point, and then it levels off, and they go back into the system. So they're kind of awake, but they're not really awake. You know, they're awake to a certain extent. So those people are somewhat in the middle of everything, but they don't want to accept that it's all a lie, that everything is fake. You know what I mean? So those people are kind of on the middle, I guess, on the point of that their brain can break, you know, based on your theory. But it's just a really interesting time. So I don't know. So I think that at that point, people default to some sort of emotional predisposition that is based on nostalgia. That's my take, and that they will default to something that is almost childlike. You know, it's like they have to place their faith and their hope and trust in something versus nothing, because when you have nothing to have faith in, and there's no hope. And I was thinking about this yesterday. I was walking down the street. It was like, kill hope, and then your life can really begin. You know, and most people just don't want to confront that at all, because that's an existential hell. It's an existential nightmare. And yet, I truly believe, if you want to really be free, you have to go through that zone. You have to go through that dark night of the soul in order to come out the other side. And then when you come out the other side, then something else takes place. There's a light at the end of the tunnel that you didn't know existed, and it's not based upon anything in this world. Anyway, let's talk about you. What's your name? My name is Lawrence.
Okay, Lawrence. Why don't you go ahead and give me your birthday, Lawrence?
Sure. It's 10/11/77.
Right. Let's go here. I'm going to edit this, and 10/11/77. Okay. Let's do that. All right. Okay. And where did that take place?
Where did what take place?
Your birth. Where were you
that
born?
was in New York City.
Okay. And what time?
I think it was around 12 o'clock at night.
Okay. Let's do that. 12 midnight. And let's do this. Okay. And let's go to New York. Okay. There's a lot of New Yorks in the United States. There's a New York, New Mexico, New York, Texas. There's a New York, Kentucky. All right, here we go. But you were born in New York, New York. All right, I have your chart in front of me, and where do you want to go?
I have no idea where I can go. I mean,
what would you like?
I'm sorry, I'm not really too familiar with this whole thing.
Okay, is there an area of your life that you are, besides your health, obviously because of this Lyme piece and /MS, but is there anything in your life that is an issue, or you want to kind of go deeper with?
No, I guess health would be the only thing that is. Okay.
So according to your chart here, you have Chiron in Taurus, and I actually had a client yesterday that I had a reading for, and they had Chiron in Taurus as well, born right around the same time. Their Chiron was at 8 degrees. So Chiron is called the wounded healer, and it's in Taurus, and Taurus is about the body, And so when you combine the wounded healer with the body, one of the things that, as far as my experience with Chiron, is that whatever sign it's in, it is almost like an affliction that one needs to be able to accept and embrace and then heal. Okay, so for me, my Chiron is in Aquarius, and it's in the third house, and it's about the mind, right? So maybe this is why I talked about breaking the brain and all that stuff, right? Because I had to go to a place inside my own experience where I had to confront things like madness and being eccentric or unorthodox or, outside. And once I fully accepted that and was okay with that, it became a strength for me. So for you, the affliction with Chiron is the body because it's in the sign of Taurus. And part of what you're going through with your battle, ongoing battle with, not even ongoing, you had it and you have these new symptoms now, is dealing with the body and using the body as a point of inquiry around truth, your own personal truth. So right now, what we're seeing in terms of the big shift with the nodes, the nodes have moved from Sagittarius and Gemini to Scorpio and Taurus, is that as the South Node gets closer and closer and closer to your Chiron in Taurus, you're going to have more of an opportunity to explore this idea that for you to be really free in this lifetime, and that you're going to have to somehow embrace the limitations of the body and then move beyond those limitations. And really it will be, I am not my body. My body is a vehicle, but I transcend my body. My thoughts, my soul, my spirit, these are all things that exist outside of time. And at that point, you can then embrace the body from a wholly different perspective. And this is actually coming your way, but it's not for a while. It's not for about another 15 to 16 months. So the thing also that I'm showing here with Chiron up in your 10th house, based on the time that you just gave me, is that it plays a large role in how you contact the world, or the point of contact with the world, since the 10th house is the world. And what are you doing right now? You're contacting the world. You're talking to people through my show, and they're learning about your condition. We're learning about Lyme disease. So this would actually be something that would take on more of a resonance for you as as the nodes get closer and closer and closer to your Chiron, both in conjunction and in opposition. So perhaps there is something here today that you'll walk away with that will say, hey, I've got a story, and maybe I need to share my story in a more formal way. Maybe I need to write about it. Maybe I need to blog about it. Maybe I need to be an advocate. Maybe I need to help people, because Chiron in the 10th house is saying that you're here to share that with the world. And we're everything is about the body today, or so it seems. The moon is in Taurus. We've got this confluence of Virgo and Pluto and Capricorn, and so this is actually a really good time, I think, to be having this kind of discussion. You've got Mars on the ascendant, almost right on the ascendant. You have Mars in Cancer at 22 degrees. Your ascendant is Cancer at 23 degrees. So this whole notion of being able to use Mars and Cancer in a way to heal, to be receptive, to nurture, very sensitive. You're very, very sensitive with a Cancerian ascendant, and especially Mars there. There could be some moodiness. There could be some fluctuation of emotion, especially if you're not feeling right. If you're not feeling right in your body, if you're not feeling right in your emotions, it can be, challenging for you to actually be in the world at times. But when you're feeling good, anybody that has Mars in Cancer, when people have Mars in Cancer are feeling good, feeling confident, especially when it's on the ascendant, you can really get a lot done. There's a great deal of confidence. People want to be around you. They want to be around your energy. There's a very loving, nurturing vibe that comes with that Mars placement in Cancer. And the key for you is to understand your cycles, when you don't feel like going out, don't go out. When you feel like going out, go out and, and mingle and mix and socialize. So a lot of this is going to be about your own sort of emotional tides, and to be okay with your emotional tides, based on, let's see, you've got Moon in Virgo at 25 degrees, and you've got Venus in Virgo at 23 degrees. So this whole notion of health is very important to you as well. They're very, very close in length, 3-degree orb on the conjunction. And it's in the third house, both Venus and the Moon. They're in the third house, so it's about the dissemination of ideas, the sharing of knowledge, sharing of information. So if we go back to this whole notion about Chiron and Taurus in the 10th house and being able to be more of a public figure for the vulnerability of the body and things like that, this actually matches up quite nicely. Your own true node is down, according to this chart, is down in the 4th house. Your true node is in the sign of Libra here, and it's at let's see, 15 degrees. You've got Sun, true node, Pluto, Mercury, all in Libra. You're very fair. You're very balanced. And some of those planets actually square Mars a little bit, like your Sun and the True Node. Well, Sun, True Node, and Pluto, they all square Mars. Mercury's a little behind that curve. But when you get into the Mars square, the challenge with the Mars square in Cancer and that Libra stuff is when you don't feel like things are fair. When you don't feel like things are fair, or somebody's getting the shaft, or not going in the right way, that can be very depressing for you, and that can actually bring up a lot of anger and a lot of frustration. And I would say the biggest piece that you have to deal with in your chart would be frustration. That would be kind of a common theme. And how do you deal with that? How do you see like exactly what we're talking about, which is in some ways the truth, or the truth as much as we can perceive it with all that Libra, and feel it with that Mars and Cancer, and yet look at the world around and say this really doesn't match up. It can be a very frustrating experience, So how do you deal with that? You have to find your own ways to balance that inside of yourself, and balance is really, really important. I bet you've learned a lot about balance, having Lyme, and getting the right nutrition and getting the right sleep and the right rest, and coming into a really balanced kind of focus with your life. So those are the headlines. For your chart. You've got Jupiter in Cancer as well. So this whole notion of healing, regeneration, and according to, again, the chart that I'm looking at, they're both in the 12th house. So with Mars peeking up and over onto the ascendant. With Jupiter in the 12th house, the whole, you've got a really great trine between Jupiter and Uranus, which is the trine of genius, by the way. The way for you to get in touch with your own personal genius is to take time out and be away from the maddening throng, and to take time out and to meditate, or to be in places where you're inspired, where you're calm, where you are feeling nurtured. And when you have those moments and have those experiences, then really the universe can seep through and rush into your life, and then you can begin to have more exalted and more expanded perspectives on life, nature, health, being, all those things. So it's important for you to take time out and to nurture yourself in ways that are very loving and very organic and very natural. Water is a big ally for you too, as well, with all that. Have you done things like going to hot springs or saunas or stuff like that?
No, as far as water goes, I've been working on the distilled water, trying to drink a gallon of distilled water a day, because it's something I've heard about, that it can be helpful. Andrew Weber was talking about. So I've been doing that for about 2-3 weeks now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, I haven't done anything else besides.
Yeah. So with Jupiter and Cancer in the 12th house, you go find a hot spring somewhere and climb in. Go away for a couple of days and let your body soak, and let the wonderful volcanic waters of the earth, leach out some of those toxins. I think you'd really enjoy that with Jupiter and Cancer in the 12th house. So, well, listen, Lawrence, I'm going to move on, and then we're going to do some more readings for some other folks. But I really appreciate your call, and I really appreciate you bringing your experience about Lyme for the rest of us to share. Okay.
Sure thing. Hopefully it helps somebody. Thank you very much for the reading and for your time also. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
All right, Lawrence. Let's go to, I know who that is. That is Dave. I know it's Dave. Let's get to Dave in a second. Let's go to 9, and that's Dave Lanise. Okay, we got 2 regulars here. All right, Dave's next. Let's talk to Dave. Hello?
Hey, this is Dave.
I know it's Dave. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good, man.
Well, all right. I tell you what, not to change the subject or anything, but I'm so glad that you did that Paul McCartney thing the other day. I was was like exploring. I've explored it for like 5 years or 10 years or something, but I was kind of looking around that morning, and then all of a sudden, your show came on, and it was like my jaw flopped. And then when the lady said, well, God, why would you want to talk about Paul? Well, we have all these other things.
Yeah.
I'm right with you, because that man we've all seen a million times.
Yeah.
And really haven't put that together. So that was an experience. I'm really interested in how that scenario plays out.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I came to the conclusion that Paul McCartney classic Maca is the skeleton key to pretty much everything, because of the entrenchment in the 60s and the mind control and pop culture and everything that sort of spreads out from that point forward. So, and it's one of those things, too, that if people wrap their heads around it and it was actually real, well, here's this one notion, this one sacred cow that has been taken down. Well, what other sacred cows can be taken down at that point? So that's really, why I think it's important. Not that I'm going to make a career out of trying to prove that Paul McCartney isn't real, but I think it is important. And it's also apparently people that have really gone after it and spent a lot of time. It's actually pretty scary and kind of edgy. And people have been frightened off that path if they've gotten too close to it, which is really kind of weird too. So, I did a show on it, and Claire does a lot of stuff on it, and there's a lot of stuff out there, and people can find out more about it if they like.
Well, the thing that threw me over the edge was listening to a Heather Mills interview just recently.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's pretty scary, huh?
Yeah, but it's scary, but it shouldn't be. I mean, really, it's kind of funny how uncannily scary it feels and weird it feels, because, what if it did happen? I mean, it's not as if he's reptilian or he's something other than another man. It's just so odd that we can be lied to and just not really get it. It's so beautiful that this is all coming out.
Well, the thing with the Heather Mills stuff, so what Dave is referring to is there have been at least 2 interviews that I know of. One, I think, was with Entertainment Tonight, Billy, what's his name, and Heather Mills talks about betrayal, and she talks about it in a way that is very clear that it is Paul McCartney that has betrayed her, and she makes it very clear that she has evidence over the betrayal, and that if anything ever happens to her, that evidence will be made public from another place via another person. Now,
and very, very frantically, she says, "You cannot handle the truth."
Right. Now, so it comes down to 2 things. One, it comes down to is what she's referring to the notion that McCartney is not McCartney, or did she see something that McCartney was doing and had something on him, not just the fact that he isn't who he is, but perhaps she caught him in the act of something that is heinous. Okay, so that there's a whole another thread to the narrative, and I've had other people suggest what that might be, and I don't really want to go into them on the show right now, but there's possibilities that it's not just that he's an imposter, that there's something else, and that's what she has on him, not just who he is or is not, but this other thing. So it's kind of freaky. I mean, you can tell that this woman is disturbed. She's not well liked by anybody who has any kind of warm feelings towards Paul McCartney. So anybody that's into McCartney can't stand Heather Mills. I think she's a gold digger and all this stuff. I don't think she is or was. I think she found something out and she got freaked out. She wanted out. So there we go.
Well, I'm right with you. I think that's the most important scenario we have to look at anywhere. These other people, I can see how they can, talk about Hillary Clinton, and there's 14 of her out there somewhere.
Right.
My mind cannot wrap around being a clone, but we're looking at this man that sings. I mean, how does this this person come up and actually have this voice? And it's the one for me that's beyond belief, that I totally believe is pretty obviously going to show up.
Well, I think it's a really good question you bring up. I mean, and I don't know if anybody has ever done this, but there are, maybe Claire talked about this, but there is a spectrograph with the voice. And I bet you could take if you could find the original multi-track recordings of Paul McCartney, say circa 1964, and then another multi-track recording of Paul McCartney, say circa 1968 or 67, and put them side by side and did this spectrograph, sort of readouts of the two voices, I'll bet you there's differences in those voices. They're almost like fingerprints. I know this for a fact. So I would love to see somebody from the research world be able to dig something like that up. I don't think voices are that hard, to be honest with you, to get them to approximate something. I don't think that they're that hard to do. I listen to this guy who does all these impressions, Frank Caliendo, and Frank Caliendo can sound like just about anybody, and it's uncanny. So I don't think that that's hard. But I think getting the exact sort of match in terms of tone, what's left out in terms of highs and lows, the resonance, those things would show up. But you'd have to get spectral on it. That's my take.
Well, that's going to bring it to the head. We've got Sir Paul, and we know who he hangs out with, and I mean, it all is kind of coming around. It's all surrounding him, and it's just uncanny that he's been so free to show up in all these places and still tours, and I've got friends that hang out with him all the time. So he's put himself out there,
Yeah. Well, he actually he married this woman who was the daughter of the guy who ran the business that my father-in-law worked for. So my father-in-law knows, the new wife of Paul McCartney. So it's, he's out there, and he met her through Barbara Walters because she's Barbara Walters' niece. So, yeah, pretty wild, huh?
Well, it's all in the club, isn't it?
It was really fascinating seeing McCartney at the White House with Obama. And you can find these performances online on YouTube. There's a number of people, Stevie Wonder, Jack White, who come up and do McCartney songs at the White House. And to see Obama and McCartney side by side is really kind of mind-blowing. It's like, what are these guys talking about? What kind of conversations are they having? Both implied and otherwise. So it was fascinating to watch them, to actually watch them during that concert is really a trip. And you can fill in the blanks, obviously, by looking at them.
Well, he really takes on a different hue once you start listening to this. And when you look at the man, I don't know what's happening with me, but I mean, etherically, there seems to be, the veil is getting thinner, you know?
Yeah.
And I can't even really put it into words, but the world is getting stranger, and it's just it's a challenge to either go into the okay or into the cerebral aspect of it, where there's always fear involved. So it's a very strange time we live in, and
I agree. Well, listen, man, you and I are probably going to meet each other face to face at some point because I'm coming down to your neighborhood. So.
Excellent. How long is it going to be before you get here?
I'll be there in about 6 weeks.
Oh, excellent. Okay. You got my number.
I do. I'll look you up, man.
Okay. Blessings. Right. Have a great day, y'all.
All right. See you later. The amazing Dave from Austin calling in. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am moving I am moving to Music City, USA, and that's happening in about 6 weeks. So the show will still be here. It may take place at a bit of a different time because now I'll be in, Central Time versus Pacific Time. But I'm looking forward to it, and I hope to really connect into the Austin community in a big way. So that's where it's going. The sideshow is going south, going Lone Star. Let's talk to Lanice. Maybe I can just start talking like a Texan right now. Is this Lanice?
Yes, it is.
Howdy, Lanice.
Hi, how are you?
I'm just channeling a little Texas here, ma'am. I'm moving down to Austin.
All right.
So what's going on?
Well, everything is steady going.
Steady going, well, good. Steady going is sometimes better than steady ongoing. Unless steady ongoing is leading
ready or not, whether I'm ready or not, it's going.
Yeah. So
I want to make everything stop.
So you're a Taurus, right? Aren't you a Taurus? No, you're a Cancer, right? Cancer. Yeah. I'm trying to relate today's planets to you in your charts.
I believe I have Taurus in my 9th house.
Mm-hmm.
Natally.
Right. So the moon is up there in your 9th house today. Did you hear my thing about getting haircuts with the moon in Taurus?
Haircuts?
Yeah, today is a good day to get a haircut.
Oh, wow.
Moon in Taurus is a good day to get a hairstyle, haircut. Better on the wane than the wax, and we're on the wax now, but still nonetheless, if you have to get a haircut, or go to the beauty salon, today would be a good day for that. Venus is in Cancer. It's at the edge of Cancer, 29 degrees. We've got a Venus-Saturn square going on, ladies and gentlemen. Take note of that. Venus-Saturn square can be challenging, a little bit conflict-based, trying to find fair play and balance in the midst of trying to find emotional resonance and emotional, nurturing inside of relationships. Who gets loved? How do they get loved? Can you work it out? That's a big deal here with Venus and Cancer. 29 degrees. It moves into moves into the sign of Leo, I believe tomorrow or the next day. So
is that better?
Venus in Cancer is not bad. I mean, Venus is it's exalted in Cancer. It's a nice place for Venus. You got to love Venus in Cancer. You got to treat people nicely, eat good food, nurture a relationship. But Venus in Leo is good too. Venus in Leo is very loving, very, very loving. So we have an opportunity to open our hearts, with Venus and Leo. We'd like that. The early Venus degrees will be trining Uranus, so it could heat up relationships that have been cold and dormant, and especially with the Venus Saturn square. Now we're moving into a more harmonious confluence with Uranus and Venus. Instant relationship, instant heat, instant regeneration. And it could be actually a pretty fun time here in the next few weeks. So that's good. And we like that.
Well, this past week has not been fun. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, why is that?
Well, I'm just kind of disgruntled and dissatisfied and with changes that I need to make and haven't made.
Yeah. Well, come on down to Austin. I'll buy you some barbecue.
That would be nice.
Do a road trip.
I need to get on your Facebook page so you can see my face.
That would be nice. Are you on Facebook?
Yeah, I'm on there.
Well, come find me. There's a bunch of people that are in the chat room and stuff. They're on Facebook too, so you can connect with those folks. I have good Facebook friends.
Okay. Are you under Robert Phoenix?
That's right. That's me. Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll find you, and then you'll be able to see this face.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to that, and you can jump in on the conversation and stuff that happens there too.
Okay.
All right. Do you want me to put you back on hold?
Yeah, I'm about to start making some noise anyway, getting out of the car, so I'll be listening. Thank you.
Okay.
See you later.
Thanks for calling, Denise. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, lovely Denise from Memphis. All right, let's go to 502. Hello, you're on the air.
Oh, hi. Thank you for taking my calling. I wonder, it's the first time I'm calling, so I'm sorry if I ask you, but you do reading on the phone?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So can you do a reading for me?
Sure. What's your name?
My date of birth is 6/23/81.
Okay. And what is your name?
Debbie.
Debbie. Okay. Great. Debbie, 6/23. Do you have a time of birth, Debbie?
8:30 in the morning.
Okay. So let's get in here. Hold on a sec. I got to go over here. Take me just a moment in time to do this. Let's go there. And let's go here. Okay. Okay, so 6/23/81. 23 and 6 is June and 81. And I'm sorry, what was that time again?
8:30 a.m.
Okay. 30. And where?
Brazil.
Brazil. Which part of Brazil?
Recife.
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 Okay. There we go.
R-E-C-I-F-E.
Yep, I got it. Pernambuco.
Yes.
Yes. All right. There you are. Okay. I see you. You're Leo rising, and you are Cancer Sun 1 degree, Pisces Moon 10 degrees, and you have Venus in the true node in the 12th house. And here we go, Chiron again in Taurus, conjunct the midheaven. Very interesting. Another theme here emerging. All right. So, what would you like me to check out?
Something, past year, 2 years has been a lot, actually the past 5 years, a lot of roller coasters, but it's still, it's going the right way, but I wonder when it's going to smooth out and, just what coming up for September, October.
Okay, so for September, October, let's just do September, October. I think that's a really good point of focus for you. So one of the big things is that you have Pluto in Libra, and that's at 21 degrees. And in 2011, Saturn, the planet Saturn, spent a lot of time around your natal Pluto. And whenever Saturn crosses Pluto in the birth chart, significant changes take place in one person's life. And depending upon where Pluto is, those changes will manifest differently. And you have Pluto in the 3rd house, which is the house of brothers and sisters. It's the house of the home, well, not really the home, but like the area around you, like your neighborhood. It's also the house of communication and dissemination of information. So when Saturn crosses over, when it crossed over Pluto, let's get a date here. Let's go back in time. Let's go to 2011 and find out when that happened. So 2011, we're looking at, let's see, it would be October of 2011. So really anywhere from like October 1st when Saturn was in 3 degrees to all the way up to like the 21st of October going into November. That's when Saturn crossed over your Pluto. And I don't know what happened in your life at that time, but based on what I've seen with charts, generally speaking, it is not an inconsequential transit. So you might have had to deal with things like challenges with siblings, challenges with brothers and sisters, cousins, nephews. You could have had to deal with challenges around your own neighborhood, things like zoning laws or, interminable gossip or feeling betrayed by, sort of the things like the city council or whatever those things are around you. There would have been something that you would have had to, readjust and realign. The thing with Saturn-Pluto transits is that if a person is living their life in a way that's congruent with their soul's journey, Saturn-Pluto transits aren't necessarily that difficult. They can be used for focus. It can be used for going deeper. But if they're not living in a congruent way with their life, the Saturn-Pluto transit will shake it all out and will take away things that are meaningless. And at that time, they may seem like they're important, but really what's happening is that you're getting a readjustment and a realignment. So I don't know what was happening for you.
They did. All that happened since October last year. Now it's like, whoa, finally I'm getting out of all that, but all what you say is so true. I can't believe it how true it is. After October last year, my life did whoa, but it's looking like it's smoothing now. You know?
That's what happens with the Saturn transit. It takes things away that ultimately you don't really need anyway. Okay, so sometimes that's hard for people. Like for instance, I have a friend who, when Saturn crossed over Pluto in her second house, the IRS froze all of her money, everything. She had nothing. And what's happened in the interim is that because she was a person that was on the fence between being a corporate person and somebody who was more of a free spirit, and because she had nothing, she had to lean on her community. And in order to lean into her community, she had to get into her community. So she had to get to, make relationships and build bonds with people that were outside of her corporate world. So she became kind of like, I wouldn't say a hippie per se, but kind of along those lines. And so what Saturn did is it's like, okay, you can't make up whether or not you want to wear a suit or you want to wear tie-dye. Well, we're going to make the decision for you. We're taking the suit away because you, in your heart of hearts, that's not really who you are. That's not really what you need. You go do this. And that's what happened to her. Okay. And I've seen this time and again with Saturn on Pluto happen in my own life too. And so, yes, now it's in your third house. And actually Saturn in the third house is a very good transit. When Saturn moved into my third house, after it moved out of my second house in my first Saturn return, I loved it. I got to really focus on my mind. I got to really focus on communication. That's when Saturn moved into my third house, that's when I learned tarot and really got into divination in a very interesting kind of way. So I love the Saturn third house transit. You learn lots of stuff. You're able to
I finally saw a lot of people that I thought it was a good people. It wasn't.
Yeah.
But wow, it was very hurtful. But I'm glad I'm passing. I'm passing totally different person right now, more strong, stronger person.
Yeah, and Jupiter is it's just at the edge of your 10th house and 11th house cusp right now. You've got Mars in Gemini, which is at 12 degrees, and Jupiter goes backwards. I think it goes retrograde. I think it goes back to 6 degrees next year. So you're going to have Jupiter.
So what does that mean?
Well, it's in your 10th house, so it's a good time for you to have entrepreneurial ideas, potentially launch a new business, or market yourself in a way with the world that allows the world to see you as being inventive and clever and funny. And because you have a really nice trine between, it's a little wide, it's 9 degrees, but it's still, you've got a trine between Mars and Pluto. You're tough, you're enduring. When Jupiter, transiting Jupiter, gets to like 18 degrees, 20 degrees, by that time it'll be in your 11th house, and it'll sit very close to your Venus, your Mercury in Gemini. That would be a time for you to try to find investment or to try to find somebody who would help you with an idea or back an idea that you have. That would be very, very good for you, because you'll be able to. That would be more like May, June of next year. Okay. So what you would want to do is if you have any ideas for a business or promoting yourself or doing something that's entrepreneurial, now's the time to put those ideas on paper, make the plans, do all the groundwork, get people excited. You yourself stay excited, and then next year.
I own a business. Yeah.
And then next year.
I own a business, so.
Yeah. So then next year, when Jupiter gets close to your Mercury and begins to trine your Pluto, that's when you really go after people and say, hey, I've got this great idea. Here's my business plan. I've already made a little bit of money off of it. I want to take it to the next level. How would you like to make some money with me? Not invest in me, make money with me. I'm here to help you make money, okay? That would be the way that you want to go about that. And then what's really cool is then Jupiter in 2013, I think it's like June, July 2013, I think it's July, when Jupiter goes into Cancer, then you're going to have a Jupiter-Sun conjunction. And that's really terrific. And you're going to feel like you're really humming. You're going to feel like, okay, this is destiny. I'm really doing the right thing. Your community is behind you. You've got a new network of friends and people that are going to support you. You can't rest on your laurels. You'll still have to work hard, but you're going to feel like, okay, I've come home. Whatever that means for you, I've come home. The one thing you have to watch out for, though, during that time is that your initial success, you will be tempted to overplay your hand and potentially spend more or invest more in something than you can afford at that time. So, July of next year, whatever gains you have, you need to be able to consolidate them and not go overboard and not overextend yourself, okay?
Yeah, wow. It's the first time I ever doing this, and I'm definitely going to try to talk to you after the show and email you or something, and maybe have that just really full reading, because I'm so impressed, shocked for all this, because that's so true, So wow, thank you. Did you see just one little thing? Did you see any my financially September, October, or pregnancy, something like that? I don't know if you can see on that.
October. Well, okay, so in September, right now you've got Moon in Pisces, and today the Sun is in Virgo. It's opposite your Moon, which is really interesting that we're talking about birth. The Sun opposite Moon. So potentially, I would say, yeah. I mean, so the second house is the house of Taurus, and Taurus is all about the body. And when the Sun moves when Sun moves into Virgo at 20 degrees, then you're going to have Sun in the second house. And then in October, you're going to have Sun conjunct Jupiter, which is, I talked about transiting Jupiter conjuncting your Sun. Well, this will be transiting Sun conjuncting your Jupiter. So what happens in October is kind of what I would call a presage or a window onto what will happen in July of next year. So what are we talking about? Let's go October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, 9 months. So pregnancy, very possible, because now we're talking the Jupiter cycle, transiting Sun on Jupiter, transiting Jupiter on Sun. That would make a lot of sense. So fertility, whether it's income or whether it's a new life, very possible for you, absolutely.
In October or September, October, right?
Yep. Especially right around the 22nd or 23rd of September.
Oh my God, you scare me, because I'll be ovulating on that time.
You'll be ovulating, huh? All right.
Oh my God, I'm so shocked. I will have to call you. Yes. What's the best way to talk to you outside the show?
You can go to my website, robertphoenix.com, and my email is robertphoenix@robertphoenix.com. There you go. You can send me an email.
I will. And oh my God, I don't even know what to say. Just thank you so much.
Hey, you're welcome, and thank you for calling the show. And I'll see you offline. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right,
bye.
take care. Bye bye. Okay.
Can you keep me on?
Oh shoot, I'm sorry. I call back in. I apologize. I brought her offline after that call. My bad. All right, I got time for one more call here. This is a 250 area code. Let's find out who they are and where they're calling from.
Hey,
Hello.
Hi, good morning, Robert. It's Linda.
Hi, Linda.
Calling from Canada.
Linda from Canada. How are you?
I've been wanting to call you so many times, but this is the first time in months that I've actually had a telephone.
Well, how's that experience going for you?
Well, it's pretty cool. I'm living in paradise at the moment, house sitting.
Uh-huh.
And, there's so many things that I would want to talk to you about, but my daughter just had a birthday, and I thought I would ask you to have a look at it because it's so close to me, her chart, that I can't see it. But she's got a huge transit coming up. So it's September 1st, 1990. And you were talking about the Pluto in Scorpio this morning. And anyway, 1990, 1 a.m. Eastern Time.
Okay. And where?
Sutton. She was born at home in Sutton, Quebec. So I don't know if that's going to be on your radar.
Yes, it is. There it is.
It is. Cool.
Yeah.
Small town.
Okay, there she is. Let me just tell you what I have here. I've got her as a Virgo, right?
Yeah.
And Capricorn moon and Cancer rising. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So she's got all those major planets over there in the 7th house. Neptune, Saturn, Moon, all in Capricorn. And, Pluto moves onto her Neptune next year at 11 degrees. And it's right there.
Well, it's exactly
right
on her descendant right now.
Yeah, exactly on her descendant. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, major transformation in relationship. Very, very intense. But not bad, though, because of the really sympathetic angle between the Sun and Mercury in her chart. So she's going to be able to, cognate and disseminate the information very quickly. She's got that fairly tight trine between her Sun and Neptune, and also Uranus. Her Sun sits right between Neptune and Uranus in terms of the trine. So, when you have that kind of a trine and you get a major aspect going over one of those planets, it's like the entire body gets it. It's not just like, say, this is my interpretation, okay? And I'm this is my putting this out there, that it's not just about Venus or Mercury or Mars or the Moon. When there is a trine like this and a major planet goes over, it affects the entire person, because the Sun is the totality of the individual. Okay. So it affects every single aspect, including Mercury, including Venus, including the Moon. So my sense here is that, she's going to have wholesale change in her life, especially in relationship. If she's in a relationship now, she's going to, two things will happen. One, if it's a strong relationship, it will get stronger. If there are any cracks or fissures in the relationship, they will show up. And the good news is that she's going to be able to move through those changes rather quickly. And because of where her Mars is, interestingly enough, her Mars comes into play because her Mars is almost like it's 29 degrees Taurus, even though it's 0 degrees Gemini. And, it's dancing around with some of those latter degrees of Capricorn. So Mars is the ability to move. It's the ability to kind of bring the changes, into the body. And for her, it's in the 12th house. So part of this also will stimulate her to go deeper into her spiritual life as well. With Mars really the gatekeeper of the 12th house there. And then Mercury is also, really in the mix. And in fact, it gets more in the mix the closer Pluto gets to, Saturn and the Moon. I don't think that these are going to be, I think these are going to be very strong, powerful, empowering movements in her chart. Pluto's in mutual reception, and Scorpio. So again, there's the ability to integrate these, very intense and powerful changes in relationship, and her relationship to many things, and to later on, even her relationship to you because of where the moon is, and her relationship to her own maternity, things like that. None of those planets, based on what I'm seeing here, are in, really hardcore angles. There's no squares going on. I mean, there's other things happening, obviously, but there's no squares going on. There's no heavy oppositions.
Well, what was making me nervous is the Pluto-Uranus square.
The Pluto-Uranus, yeah.
The transiting, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's look at that. So Pluto, Uranus. So Uranus in Aries, right? That's what you're talking about. Yeah. That's going to be here, right there, 10th house. I mean, if anything, because of where Uranus is, it would be more along the lines of radically reappraising what she wants to do, with her life, because Uranus is in the 10th house. I don't see that as being terrible,
Okay.
And I don't know if she's in partnership with somebody right now.
She is, and I feel that it's a fairly strong relationship. They've been living together for almost 3 years. She's only 22, just turned 22.
Right.
And they have a dog, and they both adore this dog. But he just asked her to go off the pill because of her moodiness, which you mentioned earlier, being a Cancer rising. And, it occurs to me, well, she's a moody person.
Yeah.
But anyway, to me, I could see that it would get stronger. But if he has some other ideas of what he wants to do with it.
Like getting her pregnant? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, like why is I'm trying to read into this. Why is he asking her this?
Well, because I think he wants to get her pregnant. I mean, I could see with Pluto conjuncting, Neptune, Saturn, and Moon that a baby could very much be in play here. Absolutely. And with Uranus, here's where the square with Uranus would come in, is that if she did have a baby, then all of a sudden she'd have to radically reappraise what she wants to do the rest of her life, right? Which is
absolutely true.
The 10th house. So that's how that would get played out.
And interesting because in my chart, I'm looking at my solar return, and it's Mercury everywhere. Children, Mercury.
Yeah. Well, she's going to get some early returns on this with Pluto in her 5th house in Scorpio, right? And it's 15 degrees, and Pluto gets up to 13 before the end of the year.
Yeah.
So Saturn's going to be under Pluto, which is the house of babies.
Well, I can't help but be happy about that, but she'll be horrified.
Let's see. So Saturn gets to 9 degrees by the end of the year. So she would actually feel it more next year, a lot more intensely next year.
Right.
So Saturn in Capricorn, then Jupiter. Jupiter is in Leo in the 2nd house. Jupiter and Leo should make a good parent. I hate to say that, but she would. Jupiter and Leo love kids. She would love a kid if she did have a child.
We can already tell by the two of them with the dog that she's going to be a good parent.
Yeah, dog training.
But she's still studying. She's studying horticulture. She's going to graduate in a few months. And okay. Well, and it would be, if she has a career as a gardener, then baby could come along, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, it's better than being like a fuel chemist at Chevron, right? Petroleum chemist at Chevron, Yeah.
Oh, God, you're funny. You just dropped a bomb of news on us here in the chat room. We're going, wonder why? What's going on?
Oh, yeah. So, I'm actually moving. And since the NSA knows everything anyway, I'm moving to Austin. So, I'm leaving in 6 weeks, basically.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
Huge. It
is huge. And, So here's this kind of a true confession kind of moment. It's like I beat myself up for not being as productive on my blog as I can be, and I'd like to be able. In fact, I'm going to do my best to post something 100 days out from 12/21/12 and do something every day. That's my goal as a countdown to 12/21/12. But I beat myself up for not being as productive as I can. But I have so much going on. I've got a lot of readings, and I'm in a 9-month, and there's a lot of letting go that I've been engaged in this month. A lot of which I never talk about on this show, very personal stuff. And part of it now is letting go of this chapter in my life. And California has been a huge chapter in my life. And, when we go through these major changes, so much happens beneath the surface of things. And so I'm, constantly processing, at a fairly deep level. And I apologize for not being more active on the blog than I could be. It's just that I've just, going into, a different kind of phase in a 9-month, so literally September is a 9-month, September, right, the 9th. It's a 9-year for me. And as a result of that, I am in a 9-month. So I've got all these 9s going on. So it's the end of a cycle for me. And what's also really interesting is I started my blog in 2008, really in earnest in September. So it's been 4 years that I started the blog. And I sat up late last night and I thought about it, man, I've been doing this for 4 years now. And it's been kind of an interesting experience. And I'll still continue to do it, definitely, and especially as we get closer to 12/21/12. But yeah, it's happening, and I'm really, in a lot of ways, looking forward to it. There is some itinerant sadness that I'll have because this place has been a huge part of my life and my psyche. I wouldn't be who I am had I not lived in California and adopted a lot of very interesting principles and attitudes and concepts, which are really only in some ways available here in this part of the world. And And I have Uranus astrocartographically running right off the coast of California on my ascendant. So I've been a very Uranian character in this place. And that's going to shift for me, I think, significantly in Austin, where I have other aspects, and they're not as, in some ways, prominent. Mercury, Mars will be much more prominent for me in Austin. I used to live in San Diego, and there are a lot of parallel lines in San Diego and in Austin. And the Moon-Mars piece is really big, and also Mars Moon, and I've got my sun line on my, I believe it's my ascendant, is just to the east of Austin, and in fact runs through Houston. So no, it's just to the east of Houston. So theoretically, I would still get some of that. It wouldn't be as intense as, say, living right on the sun line, but I'm closer to my sun line than, say, here in California. So I'm looking forward to getting closer to that.
Well, when I tuned into the show this morning, I was thinking, oh, you've got a birthday coming up, and so I just looked at your solar return.
Uh-huh.
And the midheaven of the solar return is in Sagittarius with the moon conjunct.
Uh-huh.
And opposite it is Jupiter in Gemini. It made me think that you might be moving and that there might be some travel coming up this year.
Well, there you go. You're all over. You should have your own radio show.
Well, anyway, I hope to hear more. And don't apologize for your blog. It's plenty. It's so much to assimilate. Once a week is good enough for me.
Yeah, I'd like to do more, just because I don't know, maybe it's the Virgo in me. I feel guilty when I don't do more. And
but everything you say is so pithy. I mean, like the whole Paul article, and I really appreciate that too. It requires so much research to grok exactly what you're saying and get up to speed with it. Like I'm going to have to do now with the whole limes, few sentences you said about limes. Now I've got to follow that all up and find out what's going on there.
Yeah, I think Lyme is I think it's a huge thing, and I
know.
And it's really interesting that we had Lawrence call in at the beginning of the show and talk about it. It's I think it's one of the silent killers, and again because all these other ailments mirror Lyme, it becomes something else, right? So for him it was MS. For other people it's, fibromyalgia. For other people it's,
yeah,
Crohn's
I know. I have
disease or
friends
whatever that
and
is.
clients who have Lyme's, and it changes. It's so elusive.
Well, it's really fucking insidious. And
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, people were talking about, chronic fatigue syndrome, right? And that was just this blanket thing that they were calling it. They didn't know anything about it, And I think that really what chronic fatigue syndrome was the onset of Lyme for a lot of folks.
Right.
So, anyway, well, listen, Linda, thank you for calling in, and thank you for, being a part of the milieu. I love your presence and love your energy, and I even love your criticism, so keep it coming. It's good.
Well,
you keep me on my toes. It's good to be kept on my toes.
Wouldn't miss it, Robert. Thanks so much for the reading.
Okay. Hey, you're welcome.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. All right. Our friend Linda from Canada with a phone. It's 11:55 here in not so sunny California. Gray skies today. I've got a few more minutes, and there's one more caller. Let's see if the math works. Here we go. Hello there.
Hey, Robert.
Hi.
This is Joe. I didn't really call for reading, but I just wanted to say hi. I know you only got a few minutes, but
hey, Joe. How are you?
I'm well. So, relatively speaking, but I just found out by listening to the last bit that you're moving to Austin. Wow.
I am indeed.
That's exciting. When's that going to go down?
In October.
All right.
Yep.
Oh, good luck. How's your son? Is he coming with you? Of
course. I mean, that's why I'm going down there.
Yeah. Is that where his mom is too?
His mom got her quote unquote dream job.
Okay.
And I need to I need to respect her privacy, okay?
Yeah, that's cool.
But if I told people what the dream job was, it would be very interesting topic of conversation. Trust me. And it's nothing bad. But it's interesting for sure, and it's topical and it's social and it has to do with somebody who's been in the news lately. And I'm just going to leave it at that, okay?
Okay. Well, the last I heard of her, she was going for that triathlon. We were voting. Did she ever make it?
Yes, she did.
Marathon?
She got in. She's leaving on the 8th of October, and she is going to be gone for 12 days. And
so the race hasn't happened, or?
No, that's when it happens.
Oh, okay. I thought it already happened.
No. It happens in October.
Okay.
So it'll be. So she's going to be doing that for 12 days.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, how's your son's leg?
Well, it's mending. He's got a new cast on because the other one was stinking. So he's got a new cast, and he gets this one off next week. So he's totally looking forward to that because it's driving him crazy. He can't play, he can't jump, he can't run. His favorite subject at school is PE.
Oh, goodness.
So that gives you some understanding about what moves him. And so I would say ultimately it's been an okay thing for him. I just hope that he learns from it.
Well, yeah, the premonition with the dream, following that subconscious nudge to pay extra attention and all that jazz,
Well, I know, and I even said to his mom, I said, hey, maybe we should keep him off horses.
Yeah.
And maybe he can do something else. Oh, no, get him back on the horse. Good for him.
Well, you've heard that story I'm sure about the farmer and his son, and they had a horse farm, right? And one day all the horses broke out, and all the neighbors said, oh, my God, that's terrible. And the farmer was like, we'll see. And a couple days later, the farmer's horses came back with a whole herd of wild horses, and the neighbors were like, wow, that's fabulous. Now you'll make more money. That's wonderful. What a blessing. And the farmer said, yeah, we'll see.
I know.
The son rides the horse, falls off, breaks his leg. Oh, no, now he can't help you around the house. Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, but then soldiers came through, and his son didn't have to go to war because he had a broken leg. And so you never know, the blessings in disguise,
I know. No, I told my son that too. I told him a version of that story.
I like that story. It reminds me to...
Every culture has a version of that story.
Yeah.
An interesting story.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say hi, to hear your voice since it's been so long since we did our intense chart work a few months back. So.
Well, I know, and I've been thinking about you, and thank you for calling in, Joe. It's great to hear your voice too.
Yeah, you're welcome.
How's Ryan doing?
Ryan's doing great. He started 7th grade last week, and getting ready to go on an overnight trip with rock climbing and canoeing, and that's been an interesting thing about how he's gonna climb rock.
That'll be really empowering for him.
I hope so. I hope he doesn't feel self-conscious about,
He's a rock star.
He is a rock star. Well,
sure.
You'll be closer. You'll be in Texas instead of California. We're in Asheville, North Carolina, so maybe we'll make a road trip.
Never know. I'll be there.
You should come here. Asheville's weird. You might like it here.
I know.
Have you ever been?
I have not been to Asheville, but I have a friend there that lives there.
Okay. Well, if you come this way, look us up.
Okay, we'll do.
All right. You take it easy.
Y'all take care now.
Y'all take care.
Bye.
Peace. Bye.
All right. What a great show today. What a great show it was today. And I only got like 3.5, 4 hours sleep last night. I don't want to make a habit of it, but I had a hard time sleeping last night. Going through them changes. Anyway, for having 4 hours worth of sleep, doing laundry, having my car worked on all simultaneously, multitasking at a furious pace, it worked out okay. All right, thank you for calling in. Everybody that called in, from Lawrence to Joe and everybody in between, thank you. And I will be back on Friday with Ellis Taylor. You don't want to miss that show. I know you can't hear it right now on the stream, but on the recording, Ellis Taylor will be with me on Friday. The man, the myth. He's not quite a legend yet. I think you have to die to be a legend. But he'll be here, and we'll be talking about numerology. He'll be doing live numerology readings, just a few, maybe 3. And we're going to be talking about other worlds, and other worlds as an alternative to feeling trapped and boxed in by the encroachment of a dominant paradigm that none of us are all that thrilled about. So join me on Friday with Ellis C. Taylor. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. You've been navigating the Astrological Matrix with me. I'll see you on Friday.
In the name I am that I am, Sanat Kumara, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty Choans of the rays and the lords of karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Trigotia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I do in the action of the sacred fire in this hour, descend on mighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sanat Kumara and the 7 holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory. Come forth in this hour of the victory of the God slain. I demand the full power, beloved mighty, be with us this night. Beloved Jesus, send to me, Lord mighty, Gautama and Sanat Kumara. Come forth now in the victory of the God slain. Send the light of 10,000 suns. Beloved mighty, stand, mighty, stand, mighty, stand. Around this fortune now. I call upon the great single sun magnet. I call upon the light of God.